The movie opens with the narration of a woman who describes the life of Larrabees. They're a very rich family with a large estate and multitude of servants. Among them is their chauffeur named Fairchild. He drives the family's Rolls-Royce around and has a daughter, Sabrina. Sabrina is envious of the life the Larrabees live and their extravagant parties. Maud Larrabee stands as the owner of the Larrabee estate and Linus is her older son, who helps Maud in everything she does. Linus is a prodigy who expanded his family's business even further. The younger David is nothing short of a playboy. Sabrina has a big crush on David and looks at him while sitting on a tree branch from afar. Sabrina glances at David drinking and romancing his partner. She is disheartened and runs away. Her father tells her to get over her obsession with David and go to Paris for further studies, which was generously funded by the Larrabees. Sabrina gets a bottle of wine from the Larrabees' fridge and starts packing her bag. Linus walks out of the party to attend a business meeting. Sabrina thinks it's David and rushes to talk to him. Linus is in David's bedroom and Sabrina lets all her feelings out. She confesses her love for David, but Linus listens and instead thinking it's for him. Linus then comes out and Sabrina is shocked. She runs away into the forest, embarrassed because of what she had done. Sabrina finally arrives in Paris but cannot seem to understand the people there, since they speak really fast. Sabrina doesn't understand French either, so she just tries to get by. She loses a model's contact lens at one point and everyone is disappointed in her. But her father encourages her throughout it all. He is happy that she's finally moving on from David, but unbeknownst to him, Sabrina has David's picture attached in her room. Back in Paris, Sabrina eases slowly and is familiar with the place and people now. She even gets asked out by a photographer in the process. They go on dates and in clubs having lots of fun. At home, David starts dating another girl who's not just the daughter of a famous businessman but also a doctor. Linus is intrigued and plans to keep her in the family. On Friday, Linus, Maud and David meet his new girlfriend, Elizabeth Tyson. Sabrina, on the other hand, is encouraged by her mentor and coworker to become true to herself and work on bettering herself. She agrees and decides to go on a new venture to truly recognize her potential. David and Elizabeth also get closer and closer. Elizabeth asks David to marry her, and Patrick agrees, but he soon finds out Linus is so interested in their relationship because he could sign a deal with Elizabeth's father, Patrick Tyson, who's a billionaire and business tycoon. When confronted, Linus tells David this marriage could open a billion-dollar deal for their company. But David is scared and doesn't want to commit so early on. He tells Linus he only said he'd marry Elizabeth in the heat of the moment and doesn't plan on doing so. Linus urges David to marry Elizabeth, as she's the best thing that has happened to him, and David hesitantly agrees. David's family is called to dinner by Elizabeth's family and they have a great time. But David is still in dilemma because of his very fast-moving relationship with Elizabeth. Sabrina's father writes a letter to her saying David's engaged, which almost tears her apart. In distress, she tries to sleep with the photographer whose name is Louis. He notices her dilemma and tells her sleeping with him wouldn't make anything better. Instead, he helps her move on and become a professional. She writes her father a letter saying she's coming home soon. At home, David thanks Linus as he starts to really fall for Elizabeth. Sabrina finally comes home and has blossomed into a beautiful young woman. David meets her halfway but cannot even recognize her. He offers to give her a life, and through the whole ride, he tries to recognize Sabrina but fails miserably. They finally reach home and Linus recognizes her instantly. David is stunned to find out the beautiful woman before him is Sabrina. Linus tells David to stay away from Sabrina in order to let the deal continue. Sabrina tells her father that she's going to a party hosted by the Larrabees. Her father is distressed that she still isn't over David, but nevertheless, he allows her to go. She looks stunning as she goes to the party. David is instantly attracted to Sabrina and they go to the party together. They spend the whole night together and David can't stop staring at her. Linus is busy at this business intervention. David and Elizabeth dance the night away. Maud and Linus are concerned about David's proximity to Sabrina. Elizabeth's family isn't impressed with this either. David asks Sabrina to meet him someplace else and kisses her on the cheek. Linus approaches David and drags him to a room. Maud and Linus warn David not to screw up his relationship with Sabrina, but he claims he's in love with her. Linus tells her she's just a gold digger, but David fights him as well. Just then, David sits on glass and injures himself. He's rushed to the hospital. Linus goes to meet Sabrina instead of David. She's upset but understands that David is injured. Sabrina asks him if he's here to bribe her to stay away from David and Linus agrees. He offers her $1 million, but she respectfully declines. Sabrina confesses to Linus that she's been in line with David ever since she was little. Linus says he knows that and compliments her beauty. Linus offers to dance with her in place of David as part of a message. They start dancing and talking. Sabrina asks why he's doing this, since Linus is always so engrossed in his business. He replies that he just wants to dance with the prettiest girl at the party. Linus kisses her unexpectedly and Sabrina slaps him. Linus is embarrassed and apologizes for his actions. Sabrina apologizes as well, not knowing what came over her. He soon leaves the scene. Much to his shock, Linus falls in love with Sabrina and conspires to take her out on all the dates David promised her to. He tells the doctors that David's injuries are grave and to give him strong medication to make sure David doesn't get to meet Sabrina for the next couple of days. That way he could get David to marry Elizabeth. He tells Maud that he's always liked Sabrina, so he's going to distract her from David. The next day, Sabrina comes to visit David, but he isn't in his senses due to the medication. Linus takes this opportunity to get them away from each other. He asks Sabrina to accompany him to their old cottage house, which he wants to put out on the market, since she's a photographer now too. Sabrina agrees and they board the Larrabees' private jet. They reach the old cottage house and they chat for a while as Sabrina takes the pictures. Linus tells her he's lonely and Sabrina slowly starts getting intrigued by Linus, since they're spending so much time together. They enjoy the view and Linus is concerned about his own growing affections for Sabrina. They bike through the city and Linus even exaggerates about how big of a philanthropist he is. They bike into the sunset and have dinner at the riverbank. Sabrina tells him how he just seems so stern and how she's always been afraid of him. He laughs and tells her he's always been lonely and that he never had time for love. That's why he never married. The following night, Sabrina bids Linus goodbye and tells him he's always been awfully good at everything. She also tells him David never worked in the company, because he thought he was inferior to Linus. Linus understands and goes away. Sabrina asks him to live his life, which leaves Linus pondering over it the whole night. The next day, Sabrina goes over to meet David, who is knocked unconscious because of his strong medications. Sabrina is disheartened but goes to the city to meet Linus. Linus starts to go all out for Sabrina by actually donating a lot to the poor and booking tickets to a Broadway musical to see with Sabrina. Sabrina brings in the photos of the house and mistakenly hands Linus her own photos. He compliments them and Sabrina gives him the actual photo of the cottage house. Linus asks her out to watch Broadway, but Sabrina has other plans. She takes him to a restaurant where they have Moroccan food and spend the night talking. Linus is awestruck by her and continues listening to Sabrina talk all night. Linus tells her that he's been thinking about living life his own way. Even though he loves working, it would be wonderful to spend time somewhere he loves. Sabrina chooses to stay a little longer and they go out walking into the night. Linus discreetly tells Sabrina he likes her, but Sabrina gets uncomfortable, since she's in love with David. They drive back home to see David standing outside. They talk for a while and Sabrina asks them about their future. David replies he doesn't know and Sabrina is upset by that but doesn't show it. She just goes back to her house for some rest. Linus takes in the whole scenario and feels betrayed since he has fallen for Sabrina. The next morning at the office, Linus books 2 tickets to Paris for himself and Sabrina when the Tysons come in. They notice David's increasing interest towards Sabrina, which Linus doesn't like. The Tysons are on a plan to sign the deal with someone else because of David's behavior. Maud tells them that it's only because David's not in his senses due to the medication. Maud and Linus already know the Tysons' plans, so he tells Maud that he'd take Sabrina to Paris with him and they'd spend some time there. He'd get the change that he needs and Sabrina would love to be back. Till then, David would go back to Elizabeth and they'd close the deal. Maud is skeptical about all of this but agrees anyway. He plans to ditch Sabrina after that. Maud feels terrible about Sabrina and her feelings, but Linus doesn't seem to care. Sabrina arrives at the office but hesitates going in. She's awkward after his confession. Sabrina is anxious about not seeing him again and they get closer and closer. He asks her to come to Paris with him. She is in a dilemma and Linus seems passionate to go to Paris to change for the better. They soon kiss and Sabrina realizes her feelings for Linus. She tells him she likes him too and how he's been there for her. She thanks him for making her happy, but Linus isn't impressed. He was only doing this to Sabrina for the business, but now things have gone too far. He feels too guilty and confesses everything to her. Sabrina is devastated and cannot believe it. Even after all this, she keeps a smile on her face and tells Linus he shouldn't have gone through all that trouble. Linus bribes her with an apartment and money to live in Paris. He apologizes, saying it isn't personal but just for the deal. She accepts the ticket anyway and says she doesn't want any money. Linus is distressed to see Sabrina go. Sabrina later on meets David and tells him that she's leaving. David is upset and bids her goodbye, knowing he can't stop her. He tells she is very different and he'll always remember her, and she smiles. She goes away and the next day, Linus tells his assistant to send David to Paris instead to seek true love. David barges in at that moment after realizing what had happened and punches Linus. He curses Linus for what he did and calls him a sick madman. Linus tells David to go to Paris with Sabrina. After all, he's the one she's always loved. David is who she wants, so Linus urges David to go with her since she doesn't want her to go to Paris alone. He agrees that he messed things up and he manipulated her, so he wants to mend things now. He's even ready to throw away the $1 billion. At home, Sabrina's father gives her all his life savings to live a happy life in Paris. David calls Elizabeth to come to his office to tell her everything and ask her what he should do. Sabrina leaves for France and Linus holds his meeting with the Tysons to say the deal is off. But just then, David comes in with Elizabeth. Linus is shocked and asks why he didn't go to, which Elizabeth replies that Sabrina is just a woman who likes to go to people with power. David agrees and insults Sabrina. Linus punches him and it's evident that Linus is in love with Sabrina. David closes the deal right then and promises to Elizabeth. Everybody seems to be in on the plan, since they all encourage Linus to go to Paris and meet Sabrina. Linus isn't sure what to go as he cannot just leave everything and run. But Maud urges him to get to Sabrina and so does Elizabeth. Linus rushes to get to Paris, and David starts to handle all the business in place of Linus. After receiving Sabrina's father's blessings, he quickly rushes to board the plane. Sabrina is about to enter her apartment when she sees Linus. He apologizes and tells her she's his future. He promises her that he'll always make her happy. Sabrina isn't sure of it, but Linus tells her what was supposed to be a lie turned out to be a dream come true and he wasn't losing it. He confesses he loves her. Sabrina forgives him and they start a new start at the end of the movie.